city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off on the Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I'm trying to hide this here video clip, and there we go. What is up, Avs Nation? Adrian here with Evan, Jackie, and Ezra to talk Colorado Avalanche.
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey
and
Lab.
now we're just running back to music.
New intro video refuses.
Gotta run the intro twice. What do you know? Oh my goodness. See what happens when you try to do new things, guys? It just blows up in your face. Okay, I do officially have that unmuted, so I can tell everyone once again, thank you for joining us at the Mile High Hockey Lab. Let's talk some Colorado Avalanche hockey. I've got a fun show in store for us. I came up with an idea for a new segment, basically stole the idea from a TV show and made it our style. It's called the Breakaway Challenge. Basically, it's Around the Horn from ESPN, if you've ever seen it. I will propose a topic, and I will give each of you a chance to tell me what you think. Give me some points, and I will be the decider, and I will decide who gets points. The winner of the Breakaway Challenge gets to introduce the next topic. But before we get to that, let's talk about last week, do a little bit of a recap of the games we saw, and a little bit of a preview of the games we are to see coming up this week. So let's start with you, Evan. I want to talk about Avs and Winnipeg Jets. What the heck's going on there? Do the Jets just have the Avs number?
You know, it almost kind of seems like it a little bit. And I mean, the Jets are probably a legit team in the Central Division. I know we went over this last year, but then they, completely collapsed towards the end of the year. But I mean, they dominated the Avs without arguably their best player, Kyle Connor. And that's pretty telling, I think, for sure. I'm interested to see how their bout will go in April when they see each other again for the last time, at least in the regular season. And that game in April will probably have some pretty big consequences to it for either side, depending on standings and whatnot. But that's a long ways down the line, of course. So I think it was both the fact that Winnipeg had the Avs number, but then also the Avs just did not really show up at all that night. I think it's a mix of both for sure.
Yeah, and who has been showing up on a nightly basis is Nathan MacKinnon. Even inside of their losses, two of them being to Winnipeg, both of those games he played well. Ezra, he was named the first star of the week. Tell me a little bit of what you've seen from MacKinnon, and is any of it surprising?
None of it's surprising. I mean, this is the guy he's been for the last I want to say decade. That's too long, but he's for most of his career. Yeah, he just hasn't. He started slow, and then he's been like, "Oh right, I dominate," and dominated. And it's nice to see that he's doing it right now because the team needs him. The rest of the team isn't really going that hard, so it's great. I think what's working for him is just really getting his legs going defensively, because earlier in the season it seemed like the whole team, to an extent, but definitely Nate, was taking it a little bit easy in the defensive zone. Not working, not playing defense, but just a little bit a little bit low on intensity. Yeah. But the last stretch he has been intense in all over the ice, all 200 feet. And when he's playing that way in the defensive zone, it translates to the offensive zone. And we're reaping the benefits. I mean, he's incredible.
Yeah, and it was me like 3 or 4 weeks ago who was calling for a little bit more from Nathan MacKinnon. And like, this is what I mean. And what I meant because obviously he's been one of the top scorers on the Avalanche for a while, the entire season. He's on a home point streak. But It's the show-stopping stuff that we've become familiar with from Nathan MacKinnon that I didn't really feel like I was getting much of early on in the season, and now it feels like it's all systems go for Nathan MacKinnon. And speaking of 18-year-olds coming into the league fresh and ready to roll, the Avs will play Connor Bedard, Jackie, tonight. What do you think of Connor Bedard's performance so far as an NHLer, and what are your thoughts on tonight's game?
I think he's pretty much delivered on the hype, which is pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
He's almost double up on anybody else on his team in goals and points. Probably needs to grow a bit defensively, but that's to be expected. And also, like, what can you expect on that team as well? So,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty exciting. I like that there's a young new superstar, and I'm actually excited to see it live, not tonight, but when they come back to town later on, because I want to see it in person, especially his shot. I want to see what that looks like live. As far as tonight, I mean, the Avs just have to win this game, right? Like, Chicago is now the worst team in the league as of this moment. They just got to get it done. You can't lose to this team. They lost to them last year. I don't remember if that was at home. I think it was on the road, but don't do that again. Yeah. So I hope to see a repeat of what the San Jose game looked like, where the Avs come out, have a good first period, get a lead, and then that's pretty much a recipe for their success. Then it's kind of a quote-unquote easy win. We kind of need some of those. So that's what I'm hoping to see, and I will optimistically expect to see.
Yeah, I'm with you there, because that's like, you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. That's our mantra over here at the Mile High Hockey Lab. And the Blackhawks, absolutely, as the worst team in the league, as you mentioned, Jackie, fall into that category. But damn it, if it doesn't feel like a trap game again to me. It really does, just because the Avalanche did just put on such a good performance against the San Jose Sharks. I don't know if there's like a hangover from beating San Jose necessarily, but I do wonder if being in Chicago and adding the Connor Bedard, twist to things will be kind of odd for the Avalanche. That shot that Bedard had the other night, where he went forehand, like right under a guy's stick, and then just absolutely ripped one top corner.
That was a stupid shot.
It looked impossible, but he did it. So it just feels like, I don't know, Connor might get up for a game like this playing the likes of Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. Obviously, he's one man and he can only do so much, as you mentioned, being on kind of a lackluster team. Ezra, what do you got?
Well, that goal was impressive, but if I'm not mistaken, it was the only goal of the game. So, I mean, look, there's only so much that he can do, and that roster is so bad, and even the good young players are mostly injured, so they're in trouble. Chicago, it's going to be a beatdown.
I am interested to see, though, how he'll do compared to the first game against Colorado, because that first game he did nothing. Pretty much.
In my preview I wrote, and I logged this the first time they played, because I was watching how he handled the Avalanche, and he had 20-some seconds of offensive possession time in their first meeting. So if the Avs can limit his time in the zone, in the offensive zone with the puck, then obviously that bodes well for them. But I'm with you guys. It should just be too much tonight for the Chicago Blackhawks when facing the Colorado Avalanche. But Evan, you touched a little bit on that San Jose game, and I want to come back to you about the San Jose game. Did it say anything to you that they responded that way after losing to Winnipeg, or is the whole Winnipeg thing something we still have to tackle and be concerned about?
That's a good question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think you would expect that the team to respond after not coming out Saturday against Winnipeg, against a team like San Jose, who just doesn't have the quality of players that the Avs do. When you lose a man, 2 minutes into a game for a boarding penalty, game misconduct too, that's not going to help their case either. Right. But then again, San Jose's down here and Winnipeg's up here, right? Yeah. And Winnipeg is now 2-0 against the Avs this year. So, like I said, interested to see what that matchup in April is going to look like. We might see some different lineups with the trade deadline coming up and whatnot. Other players that have already been traded, like Tomas Tatar, which I know we'll get into later too. But it's it is going to be interesting to see where things end up. It could realistically be a first round matchup if the Avs are second or third.
Well, interestingly enough, we've seen the Avalanche kind of leave a few teams, whether it be by defeating them, i.e. the St. Louis Blues, or by trading them talent and acquiring talent from them. We've seen now the Ottawa Senators have a new head coach, which the Avs will play the Senators later on this week. And Jackie, I want to send this one your way. Do you feel like the Senators are a team that will respond well to new coaching, and is that kind of a trap game in and of itself? Or is that good news for the Avalanche that they'll be with a new coach?
Oh, yeah. I think there's always a new coach bounce. So that's definitely a concern. I think they at least have a game before they get to Denver.
Yeah,
they probably should play tonight, I think. So maybe.
Yeah, they play Arizona tonight.
So maybe they'll get their little momentum game out of their way there. But like Ottawa has a lot of talent. So I think any positive change is a concern. I mean, they can score. They have good forwards. So I don't know. That doesn't really change. So it should be another game the Avs should win, but by no means is that one going to be easy. They usually have some pretty wild games against Ottawa over the past couple years. So I kind of expect that regardless of the coaching thing, but I think it's a change they needed to make. It's just been too many years of underperforming. Like, you have to do something different. So, it might get them back on track, but we'll see.
Well, like you mentioned, they've got a plenty talented roster, and a lot of the big guys in media had the Senators as a fringe playoff team heading into the season. So I'm with you. I mean, even just look around the league so far, the teams that have made a coaching change have been pretty successful afterwards. So we'll see how that goes for the Avalanche. It's always fun to play the Senators and think back to the mid-game trade with Matt Duchene. But let's move on, Ezra, to another game next week against one of your favorite teams, a team that you like to poach players from if you were the GM, the Arizona Coyotes. The Avs, this will be the first time they play them since they were dethroned, quote unquote, by the Coyotes. Am I being emotional and wanting a statement victory from the Avs in that one?
I don't think so. I think the Avs will want that too, because Arizona is, I mean, they are almost a rival's too strong, because they're just not, they haven't been good enough. But they are a team that's not been on the radar. We saw Nathan McKinnon and that tiny winger who's gone. I want to say Garland, but that's not right. Garland, thank you.
Connor Garland, yep.
He got in the tiff. He's not there anymore, but still, there's always been some animosity between these two teams, and I would expect that to continue, not in the form of like any kind of like brawl or anything. That's not what I'm talking about, but just in terms of the guys want to beat them. And yeah, that dethroning thing was very funny, and I loved that Arizona did it. It's very strange, like a crazy circumstance that they played all the previous Stanley Cup winners back to back, and they beat them all. It's amazing. I love that they played with it, but definitely also the Avalanche are aware of it, and they're not going to let it happen again.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it was borderline LA hanging a banner for the in-season tournament for me.
Sure.
But, I'm a typical Avalanche hockey fan, and when you tell me my favorite team isn't that good, or that your non-cup winning team is a better franchise than mine, I tend to get a little upset. And so there I was, kind of locked into their whole dethroned. I will put on my conspiracy tinfoil hat and tell you it wasn't an accident. Now, them winning couldn't have been planned, but I think that the schedule itself, they were like, hey, this will be kind of fun. Let's put them against the last cup winners and see how they do. It's at least a topic of conversation for the first 3 games, but when they win them, and then it ended up being a conversation for a lot longer than that. So I'm with you, though. I think the Avs need to make a statement and beat Arizona, who seem to be like trying to stake their claim as a team that will be a tough out in the playoffs. Jackie, what are your thoughts on the game with the Coyotes?
Well, Avs have had trouble with Arizona for several years now, so it's something they have to be mindful of. Similar to what we were saying about Winnipeg, I think the Avs can't take these teams lightly. They're in division. They could be playoff teams. Like, Arizona is better. Like, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs or not, but they're definitely in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's probably going to be either them or Nashville that get in for sure. And so I think we need to stop looking at these teams as, well, they weren't very good last year or whatever. Like, it's a new year. We're already a third of the way into the season. Like, it's time to start taking these teams seriously. And a concern for me is the Avs haven't beat a team in the top 3 of their division in a month.
Ooh.
So since Vancouver, I think that was November 22nd. So they just have to be these teams. They have to get wins, period, first of all. Like, there's a difference. Like, Chicago, like in San Jose, those are definitely poor teams. But when you think about, like, oh yeah, we'll pay Arizona back. Well, it hasn't happened that much. So I think they did win the series last year against them at least. But so I guess my answer is that they need to start taking them seriously, because Arizona could easily take the series against them this year. Winnipeg already has the series against them. So if you want to win the division, or if you want to do well against these teams in the playoffs, you can't lose the season series against them. So this back-to-back against Arizona, split over the holidays, is actually a little bit more interesting than I think any Avs fan would admit. But the Avs definitely need to play well in them.
Yeah. What's funny, too, is like they'll play this back-to-back, and then they won't play again until February. So it's like, and I think late February. So if you're trying to get back at the Yotes, the time is now. Because if you lose this coming week and then, have that back-to-back, say you even win it, it won't be till February till you really decide if you're either going to split with them or completely lose the season series, which is not ideal. The Yotes are 6-4 in their last 10. They've won 2 in a row. They play tonight. It could be potentially that they're on quite a winning streak heading into that game with the Avalanche. So I think you're putting it well, Jackie, when you say they need to start taking them seriously. And I think that is a sentiment that holds true even for the fans of the Avalanche. Like, we need to start taking the Coyotes seriously, because they too, like the Winnipeg Jets, could be a playoff matchup for the Avalanche. And then we know from the Seattle Kraken, we will learn to hate whoever it is we play in the playoffs. And if there's already a little seed of hate there, it's just going to bode for an amazing series. So that's kind of just a recap and a little bit of a look ahead at this week. But here is our new segment that I've dubbed the Breakaway Challenge.
The Breakaway Challenge.
Yeah. And if you don't know, that's Joe Sakic scoring for Team Canada, baby. But I called it the Breakaway Challenge because I had this image in my mind when I thought of this idea. And it's that pretend when you get this question, you are on the breakaway, and every point you make correctly, or that I agree with, I guess, is a good move on your way to the net. If you win, you scored on the breakaway. If you don't, goalie made a save. So let's start with you, Evan. Today's topic is, are the Avalanche buyers or sellers at the trade deadline, or just in trades in general? Who do you want them to trade for? And what would be the ideal time frame?
Yeah, I think kind of the easy answer here is buyers. If you look at the last, like 5 seasons, they have technically been buyers at the deadline, even if last year, wasn't really a buy-in season. They just kind of got Lars Eller, and that was kind of it. But in particular, I look at this Thomas Tatar move that they just made, and a lot of people are saying that this is the first of what is going to be another move for Chris MacFarland, Joe Sakic to make, and we don't know what it's going to be, right? And teams around the league are a little upset about it, and there's like they're stubborn, they don't know what's going to go on, right? And somehow the memo has not gotten around to never answer your phone when Joe Sakic comes calling. So we'll have to see kind of what comes with that. I know the rumors have been like Elias Lindholm. I would like it, but it'd be kind of Ryan Johansson-esque, where I'm like, I'm not 100% sure how that would go. There's sure Calgary's not the best team out there at the moment, but could he come in and do the same in Colorado? I'm not 100% sure. That's really the big one. I would look at Arizona again, just like kind of Ezra. I'd poach. I know I said it last year. I think Nick Bukestad is a good option that the Avs could bring in for that middle six. Otherwise, we're just we're going to have to wait and see kind of how injuries line up with how much cap is actually available. Is Sam Girard going to be back by then? Lecky will probably be back by then, but we have to consider other injuries. Is McCarr still going to be nagging along with this injury that he's had now for the entire season, right? There's a lot of different things that you have to look at when it comes to who you might end up buying at the trade deadline or even sooner.
Okay, Evan, that was a very, very good start to this new segment. I gave you 5 points there. Love your point about Makar and his injury status. Love your point about Tomas Tatar and that trade and how it's probably a precursor. And I like your picks in Bukestad. And I like what you had to say about Lindholm. I agree with you there. Let's go to Jackie this time. Jackie, same question. If you touch on anything Evan already said, unfortunately, I can't give you a point. Actually, I will, but it's got to be kind of different. We'll leave it there.
Okay, well, I'm going to say, they bought every year, even during the Watt era when they were bad. So they're definitely going to buy. The Tatar move, it is a precursor in a way, but it's also doing a veteran a solid. They were healthy scratching him. He's been in the league a long time. He's, I think the offer was good enough for them and they moved him, but they still have depth problems. They're still going to have to bring someone in. The guys from the AHL aren't going to be good enough. So, but is it now or is it closer to the deadline? I think teams prefer I think they're learning more and more. The earlier you get a guy in, the more you can acclimate him, the more that he can actually maybe make an impact by the time the playoffs roll around is important. So I don't think it's imminent because the roster freeze is today. So unless it happens in the next couple hours, but if not, I do think early into the new year, they're going to find what they're looking for. Now, as far as who and what, I know Lindholm's the big name, but they don't like to do the big name rental. It's going to cost too much. And then they're a pure rental. They know they're not going to be able to afford Lindholm in the future. He's probably looking at an $8 million extension. So that's not even going to be possible. So they usually don't go for the pure rentals, thankfully, which I hate so much. But I think a name that was hot last year is Sean Monahan. And he's cheap. I think he's just under $2 million, which is the right price for the Avs. And he's the right age. I think he's 28 years old. So that's a good fit. I also could think of Henrique in Anaheim. He does make a lot of money. I think it's almost $6 million. So there would have to be like 50% retention there. But you've got to be looking at the teams that are definitely going to sell this early. If you're talking about Calgary, it's probably too early for them. Arizona, like we just touched on, they could be a playoff team. I don't think they're going to pull the plug. You're going to have to look at teams that are willing and able to move a player this early. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Dang, Jackie, you just ran away with that one. She got you by two good moves, Evan. 2 good moves. She went forehand, backhand, forehand, backhand, forehand, backhand, forehand, backhand. All right, Ezra. You have the honor of going last, which might be, the hardest place to go from here in the Breakaway Challenge. But if you win it, it's just an amazing achievement. So let's go.
Well, I could try to win or I could rail against the system because what I'm seeing right now is unlimited time for everybody to hit. Left for me. There's nothing. I agree with what everybody else said, but let me add this. I think Columbus is a team that you could maybe find somebody to trade for. There's not a whole lot of options on their pending UFA list. Jack Roslovic is the only name that really jumps out as somebody who could be useful. RFA wise, I identified in a comment on one of our articles this morning, Kirill Marchenko could be an option. He's a middle 6 forward. If they're looking to move on from him, I don't know if they are. I really don't know. He might be a piece that they see as part of their future. He is still only 23. There's just not a whole lot of options out there for teams on the RFA market. I was looking at that earlier today, and that was the best name I could come up with. That and from Philadelphia, the redhead. Oh God, I'm losing my points because I can't remember his name.
Does it start with the R?
Wait, let me.
Am I about to Google redhead for the Flyers?
Did you talk about Morgan Frost? No. You're talking about Tippett. I don't. Yeah, he's playing well. I think Frost is the one that could be.
Frost is a guy who could be on the outs there. That's true. But as far as like a middle six guy who is expiring, Tippett makes sense. I also thought there's a possibility, and he's not a guy who's really going to excite anybody. Jason Dickinson from Chicago. He's a guy who could play up your lineup for a short time until Lehkonen gets healthy and then go down to the fourth line where he belongs. But the reality is, I think what we have to find out is whether Ross Colton is a 2C or not. Because if he is, if he wins that job and the future second line is Drouin, Colton, and Lehkonen, then that opens up options for the rest of the roster. If he's not, then they have to basically ship out Ryan Johansson's money to bring in a 2C. There's really no other way. So the options get limited as things go on. But let's see, what else can I say for points here? I have all the time in the world because there's no time limit. I think another thing to concern ourselves with is Gerard's return, because if he's not coming back, then they need to bring in a defenseman.
Okay.
No points for that. Interesting.
Evan said it. Evan said it. Yeah, he did. He said no points for that. Interesting. All right, so we're gonna stop it there, Ezra. Unfortunately, you're the only one with the time limit. But you know what? You put up a valiant effort. I still think you made 5 solid points that were not considered earlier. I think the main one was that you had some names for me that kind of I didn't even have on my radar, but they were good names. I do though like Frost rather than Tippett. I'm with Jackie on that one.
Because he was center or because of his play?
Yeah, I'd say because of his position. I think that's probably what the Avs are more in line with. And I also loved what you had to say about Ross Colton in the 2C role, because I think not enough has been said about that. We talked a lot about JT Compher being the 2C last season, and almost not at all, other than seeing Ross Colton as the 2C in the lineup. We haven't really entertained it as like the long-term option. And I think it's something we need to consider, especially, which I gave you a point for this, when you talk about Ryan Johansson's cost. And if we do have a solution in Colton there at 2C, there's really no point in having Ryan Johansson at that price point on the roster as well to play 3C. I think you can probably get somebody in there even via that trade with Ryan Johansson, probably at a more budget-friendly amount, and then see what you really can do at the trade deadline. So I'm with you, and unfortunately for you two gentlemen, it's Jackie who has won the Breakaway Challenge. Very first one. Jackie, congratulations. You did it. So this means, Jackie, that you get to introduce the final topic of the day before we get into our bold predictions. So the floor is yours.
And even in my least favorite topic, which is trades. So be warned in the future. Okay, I think I'd like to see what points y'all can come up with for this. Is, do the Avs have a second line or not?
Okay.
As of right now. And I think there's a clear answer to this, but out in the universe in some discourse, there seems to be a bit of a debate about it. So do the Avalanche have a second line right now?
All right. Evan, that's you. You go.
Man, I'm surprised you chose that and not a different topic. I was waiting for a different one. But
which one? I gotta know which one.
I thought you were gonna talk about Makar and resting players who are injured still, but alas.
Well, we'll get there too.
We'll get there too. To answer that question though, I'm going to say no. And I think that is mostly just because it's been changing again a whole lot this year. It's very similar to last year. Lots of constant kind of changes and moves that shake up that second line. The Jared Blendar is running strong early this year. And you know, we keep coming back to this issue. Ryan Johansson 2C, Ross Colton 2C. Do we even have a 2C, right? We had thought that we had passed this point already in the summer when Johansson was signed, and he that has not happened yet. He has definitely played there more than Ross Colton has, at least so far this season. That could change moving forward. But you think like Jonathan Drouin, who's on the second line right now, he's played on all 4 lines this season. There's been many different players on the right wing this season too. So it just hasn't been super consistent. And it hasn't been very consistent since, honestly, probably the playoffs of 2022. And so when you're missing that consistency on that second line, I think it's going to be no, just because that first line is always going to be the first line usually, unless the Lednar is really working overtime. But then again, that second line sees the most movement, I feel like. And if it's not consistent, then something's not working. So that's why I say no.
Yeah, I say no as well, Jackie. And I say no because I'm with Evan and thinking like the Miles Wood, Ross Colton, Logan O'Connor, almost did it, Ezra. That's really your third line to me. In a playoff, in a championship caliber team, that to me makes up almost ideal third line. And then I think back to the Nazem Kadri days, which I think is kind of the most recent reference, which is why I use it as to kind of like what sort of point production you want from your second line center. Obviously, Kadri's last season with the Avalanche, he finished with 87. I think that's on the high end of what you should expect. But I don't think it's unreasonable to want somewhere in that like 60 to 70 points from your second line center. And right now, Johansson is definitely not on pace for something like that. So to me, the answer is no, because you still, to me, don't have your solution at second line center. And Evan, you mentioned that heading into the season, it felt like that question was answered. To me, it really wasn't. To me, this was something kind of along the lines of maybe not so extreme, but along the lines of the Drouin thing. Like we'd heard plenty of negative things about Ryan Johansson coming into the situation with the Avalanche, as well as he was dealing with an injury. So I kind of feel like, although at the price point you might think otherwise, but I still think this was sort of an experiment. And so far, he's only got 12 points with 10 goals and 2 assists. And I don't think that is the sign of success within this experiment. So
yeah, I would agree with that. I think, what I've seen lately from Jonathan Drouin makes me think that Jonathan Drouin could be a lock on a second line at this point. I think he's earned some trust and He's played well. He's delivered on the power play specifically, but also at even strength. I mean, we saw him set up a very nice Colton to Wood goal the other night, which is great. And I think if that line clicks, cool. I don't see Miles Wood as a long-term second liner, but if Colton and Drouin develop significant chemistry and they can bring in a left wing or a right wing, whatever, Drouin can switch off.
Yeah.
But if they bring in a wing for that line that really works, which is one of the reasons I was thinking about Owen Tippett, because if Owen Tippett is the shooter on that line, that's a good line. Colton, Drouin, Tippett, I like that line. And then it leaves you with O'Connor and Wood to play the flanks on a third line, which even throw in Fredrik Olofsson, I think that's a pretty effective third line. It's not as good without Colton, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And Olofsson has his flaws. He doesn't win a lot of faceoffs. He's sometimes gets lost on defense. But I've seen a lot of cool stick work from Olofsson lately. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. But his puck handling is impressive.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind testing that out. Obviously, Johansson then is an odd man out. But if Johansson fits between Wood and O'Connor, that could be cool too as a third line. So I think it all comes down to this Drouin Colton experiment. I think right now it feels to me like we have one piece of a second line and a bunch of pieces of tweeners.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you though. Malinsky and Olofsson have been like making moves that I'm like, what the heck? Who the heck are you guys? Is that a 9 after that too, or is that what's going on over there?
Hey, I mistake Sam Malinsky's first goal for McKinnon because that shot was wicked.
It was a really
I thought it was McKinnon, and the next thing you know, scored by Sam Malinsky. I was like, wait, what?
Well, Jackie, you put the question forward, which is, do the Avs really have a second line? What's your answer to that question?
Well, my answer also is no. So maybe it wasn't as interesting of a question as I thought, but there are definitely some arguments out there that, they do have the pieces for a second line. For me, I look at time on ice. That's a big one for me. And that's when I started feeling like Johansson was really sliding down the totem pole when he, it was made obvious when he was put on the fourth line, or now the latest one is him centering Cogliano and O'Connor. So then that makes it obvious he's not on the second line. But it was before then when you saw that he was playing around 10, 11, 12 minutes a night. That's not what your second line center gives you. And so, I feel like I have the most patience for Colton. I think there's the most upside. But the thing is with him, I think it's going to take time. It might even take a couple years. And that's okay. That's what they brought him in for. That's why they signed him for 4 years. I think he can grow into that. One point against that, though, is they tried him with Rantanen, and Bednar seemed to not like it at all. And I think if he had real second-line center viability, that should have gone better, especially in his eyes. But I think, like I said, I think there's patience for it, and I think they are going to continue to try to grow him into situations. I wish that they would try him more on second line wing, but they just don't have enough centers for that. So I think if he's going to start to impact as a second liner, I'd like to see him try it on the wing. But like as of right now, especially Johansson's not second line. So I guess you're looking at is literally somebody has to, and take those minutes. Is the Colton line the second line? I guess technically, is that really a second line? No, I still say not really. I do like Drew in there. I think that has some long-term potential. I liked it when they tried it earlier in the year, and then they put O'Connor there, and I was like, I don't think those guys need O'Connor. And so I liked it with Drew in there. So there's some potential there too. I don't really see Duran as a second liner. I like him more as a skilled third liner. So if ideally I'd like that to be a third line. I think that would be a very strong third line. Right. But we're not there right now. So, and at the end, the answer still is no. There's no second line.
Well, I will add, though, we've left Lehkonen out of this conversation.
Yeah, I was about to say, I want to add some points to this. Thank you.
Well, okay, Landeskog is just not going to happen this year, so we'll see. Lehkonen, yes, he will be back. He's sort of borderline second, third line for me. I mean, he did score 51 points, which that's more than third line. Yeah, and we probably don't have enough players where he's not on the third line, but he's still sort of... he'll definitely help it for sure. And in Kovalenko, I think he's more of the skilled grinder type. So I think sort of still in the same aisle as Colton and Duran. But it'd be nice to have one more, though. Sure. Yeah. I just don't know if he by himself is going to elevate an entire line to a second line.
Well, I think the big advantage of Lehkonen's return is we know he fits next to McKinnon and Rantanen. So whether he himself is a second liner, we know he fits on the first line. So Nichushkin then gets freed up to lead a second line. And I've liked him and Drouin on the ice together to an extent, but they were always with Johansson, so it never really worked. And going back to the Colton-Rantanen connection, that line had Tomas Tatar on it.
Yeah.
I hate to
I know Bednar trashed that one real quick. So
that line did not get a real look. I mean, or that pairing did not get a real look because there's nobody to support it. With Lehkonen back in the lineup, maybe that trio works. I don't know. But, it all comes down to Lehkonen, and then there is somebody coming. We just don't know who yet. But
that's I really think that like the undertone of this episode, whether we like to acknowledge it or not, is that this is not the Avalanche team we're probably going to see a few months from now. Like, it's shades of it, obviously. You can't get rid of the whole team. But I think, like, especially if the Avalanche are successful, some really key players aren't even on the team right now, especially successful in the postseason. So I think if we look at it, the answer is no, they don't have a second line. But it kind of is yes, because they don't have three players that will likely be roster players every single night if they're healthy. And that's an entire line.
There could be missing others.
Yeah,
right.
That's true. That's true.
So that's where depth comes into play. And having third liners who you're like, yeah, that guy could be a second liner for a bit is crucial. So it's good that we have that, but you got to have the second liners.
Exactly. What's more crucial is there's Nazem Kadri. Yeah.
I was going to say that's what JT Compher was like. He was 3C for forever. And then, he could pop up and play 2C for a little while and then did really well in his last year and got his payday and went on his way. So good for him. But how have we gone through this entire discussion without talking about Dermy Dangles up there on the second line? Come on, guys. I'm just kidding.
I knew it was coming. I was just waiting for it. Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm really hoping that all these guys can come back so that at some point the Avs can move on from Dermy and in a healthy way, not to be rude to him, but just in a way where they don't have to put him on that fourth line and play him for 3 minutes. And we can just, have an actual serviceable fourth line. But since we're started talking about injuries, let's talk about Cale Makar, who hasn't played in the last 2 contests. He played on December 13th against the Sabres. He even that night only had about 17 minutes, which is much lower than we typically see from Makar. Jackie, I'll send this one to you because you brought it up in the chat. Does this feel like load management, or is this kind of like we talked about last week? It felt like there was something a little more prevalent lingering even from the beginning of the season.
I don't really think they believe in rest or load management, and if they did, they would sit veterans more. They would sit Jack Johnson, maybe Manson more, Cogliano, just not the way they operate. Bednar is very much he's gonna play his hand every night, but of course this Makar thing is ongoing. I believe it's the same issue that he's had now. When he had that nasty fall against Buffalo, could that have really caused something new and he's managing that? Or does this go back through the off season when he admitted that he never really got to 100% over the off season? And that's the biggest concern for me, because if it's still stemming from that, then rest isn't going to help. That was 5 months of rest.
Mm-hmm.
So just a week off here or there, I don't know. Only he and the training staff can tell how beneficial it's been. But the concern is that when he takes these games off, it's after he's had to leave something. I think when he didn't play on the West Coast road trip, it's because he left practice early. Mm-hmm. In this one, he left what was the last game he played?
The Sabres.
And I think he left that game. Yeah, he left the game for a good portion of the first period, came back, and then after they comfortably had the lead, he didn't play like the last 5 minutes. That's not what the Avs do. Mm-hmm. Like, if you just said, oh, this team, they're managing their superstar, you'd think, oh, that's not that big of a deal. They never do that by choice. So clearly he tweaked something there. But Bednar did also say it was part of the same ongoing issue. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm really concerned because I don't think it's just give him, it's no big deal if he doesn't play before Christmas or rest him till the new year. Because I don't think that's really going to solve it. And so my concern is it's not going to be solved until maybe he has to have surgery in the off season to really get it right. And so I think this is just going to keep popping up. It's going to be, I hope these days off help, but for how long does it help?
Yeah. And last time we had this conversation, I kind of preemptively talked about the Landeskog situation. But I don't want to go there in terms of like career ending stuff. But I will say if he doesn't play until the new year, that's going to be 6 contests without Cale. And you've already played 2. So that'll be a total of 8 games that he'll miss in the month of December. And then, who knows where the Avs are sitting there. And if it's something that is, like you mentioned, Jackie, that needs surgery, it's bound to rear its ugly head at the worst time, which is in the
right. Is he just gonna break one of these days? One of these days, it's just gonna snap or whatever it is, and it's like he's done.
I guess my question then to you, Evan, is like, hypothetically speaking, if Makar is actually has an injury that requires surgery, would you rather he do that now or later?
Now.
Yeah.
Now. I'd have him do it now. Unless
what if it takes him out for the rest of the season?
That's where I was about to go. It's like if it takes him out for the rest of the year, but he can play through it, then maybe. then maybe I'd consider doing it at the end of the year. So I think it kind of just depends on that. But you bring up a great point, though, about Landeskog Adrian, is that they did this with Landeskog, and they got away with it for a couple of months for the playoffs, won him a cup, which ultimately they got the goal, right?
Yeah.
But the Avs kind of sold their soul for it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're kind of going in with that idea that they can do it again. And of course, hockey players are going to be hockey players. It's just part of the culture where you're going to try and play through injury, be really tough throughout of it. And that's just how it is, right? That I don't think that there's anything that we can say or that the coaching staff could say. Ultimately, it's up to the player whether or not they can or want to play. And most of the, I would like to think anyway that most of the time they are going to say, yes, I will play, even if I'm not feeling 100%. So while it is nice to have Makar get some rest at this moment, I do question the time that he's going to be out. If it is really just this same nagging thing, or if it's something bigger than that. I mean, I was at the game on Wednesday against the Sabres. Shout out Eric Johnson, since we haven't gone over that yet.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful ceremony for
really
him.
Was.
And spoke with Ryan Bolding of NHL.com on Twitter/X, and he was like, yeah, Makar has not been 100% to start the year. I think he said the same too about Rantanen. He's like, we don't know yet. That was also when he was in the middle of his 10-game scoring drought. But now that Ismo Lehkonen has lit a fire underneath him, it seems like he's all healed. So I don't know. Regardless, it sucks that injuries are a thing. Every team goes through it. And I mean, like, even Andrew Cogliano, like the
that
hardest,
dude cannot catch a break.
He cannot catch a break, and is always seems to be targeted with these hits and plays through them all. And ultimately is missing tonight, because of what happened on Sunday night with him and Jack Studnicka.
Funny enough is I felt like that one was worse than the one they gave a 5-minute major.
That one was worse. I agree with that.
It feels like they see 11 and they're like, oh, it's Cogliano. Let's hit him in the back.
He can do it. He can deal with it. He's a veteran.
Yeah. He plays so fearless that he does not avoid those situations.
Gotcha.
I'll say that as well. I mean, like, the Malinsky kind of like fell into a position that Cogliano would just put himself into. So, and that's not the victim blame. Like, that, you should not make that hit if you're Jack Studnicka. That is a bad hit. You should get a penalty for it. But also, it is true that Cogliano has no bones about putting himself.
That's so funny a way to put it. Malinsky fell into the position that Cogliano would have intentionally put himself into.
I do wonder about Cogliano, if this might be the last year for him, just because it's so unlike him to miss these games periodically. You just have to wonder just how much he's hurting.
I saw that hit
to be missing these games,
and I just thought to myself, like, dang, man, should you just call it now? Because, like, this can't be good for you. It just can't. It can't be good for you. And like, I have nothing but respect for him, and obviously he's a competitor, he's a professional, is not going to want to hang him up, but I just can't help but think, like, this is the kind of stuff that wears on you long term, is these repeated injuries that just don't stop. And that's like, I just think the worst sometimes when it comes to that situation. But getting back to Cale Makar, coincidentally, he's making $11 million this year, which is the year he makes the most in terms of his contract and its structure. Next year he'll make 10.5, basically. The year after 8, the year after 5. So does that weigh into him playing or not playing, like his base salary? Because like, he's technically more expensive this year than he's been the entire time he's been an Avalanche. Jackie, what do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, I didn't even know that until you brought it up. Just how the money was structured with his, I didn't recall that. No, it's just so tough. Like you said, if a player wants to play, you let him play. If he thinks he can play through it, he has. If they've been assured he's not going to make it worse, I don't know that you could say that right now, since now we've been kind of 2 straight weeks or within a short period of time that he's had to stop and rest. It's just, I think it really comes down to how they view this season. Is this a season where they feel like they can win the cup? I mean, with the superstars they have, they have a chance every year. But do you really just have to sit back and be real with, is this your best chance?
Yeah.
And that, I think that also plays into what you do with the trades. I know there's differing thoughts out there. Like every year you should go the hardest you can for it, but resources are finite. Like if you put all the chips in this year, you don't have them next year. And it just, next year, maybe you have Landeskog. Maybe Makar actually gets healthy over the summer. If it takes a surgery, if it just takes another 5 months of rest, I don't know. But to me, this is not the best version of what this team is going to be in this window. But other people disagree and say you can't throw away a chance in your window. So I do think at some point they're going to have to think about, what is it worth dragging Makar through this season? I think that's going to be a huge turning point.
Well, like we talk about windows, and I think a lot of that started with the McKinnon contract, right? And the difference, though, wasn't just the window of value for McKinnon. It was also a window of all of our best players being healthy and in their prime. And right now, the Avalanche's best players, some of them aren't even on the ice. And to me, it feels like this, maybe even a little bit last season, the Avalanche kind of cut off their nose to spite their face, trying to get to the promised land, when in reality we kind of all knew it just wasn't in the cards when the injuries started to hit the Avalanche. So I'm with you there, Jackie. Like, I hate being somebody who doesn't think their team can win it all, but I just don't want to see the Avalanche hurt themselves in the years to come and shorten that window because they think now's the time and they got to get while the getting's good, when I really feel like this window of success for the Avalanche could span quite a long time, given the McKinnon contract and the Makar contract, and just when those end. And then, of course, depending on what Rantanen's deal looks like, if he's still an Avalanche, he'll be the new window. So I'm with you, Jackie. I feel like not to say like, hey, let's pack it in, call it a season. I just think that the Avs need to tread lightly. How they approach the deadline and, what they do with some of their draft picks. That's my biggest thing, is like, I feel like the Avs need to draft and draft well in the next couple of seasons. And that'll be pretty important to 2 or 3 years down the road when it's really Makar's team. And so we'll see how that goes for the Avalanche. But let's get into I don't know if I consider this the most fun segment anymore now that we have the breakaway challenge. But Ezra, I will add a time limit. I hear your complaint. Next time we'll do, what do you guys think? Like a minute? Is that enough? Minute
I want to know how long we went this time already. I don't know.
Okay.
2 minutes? Maybe 90 seconds.
We'll look after the show.
Yeah, I'll see how long we all talked, and then we'll come up with a time frame. That way Ezra doesn't feel cheated. Even though, dude, you almost
have to make me go last every time.
Yeah, that's true. But let's get into our bold.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Let's go that bold talk.
I'm not sure that any of us got any right, but let's talk about it anyway. So here it is. Oh, nope, never mind. Just kidding. Ado's looking at his phone. This is what it's like if you're my wife and you're talking to me and I'm sort of listening, but not really. Okay. Evan, your bold prediction was that the Avalanche would go 3-0. And they almost kind of not
almost
really.
Almost is a choice word there.
Yeah. Well,
2 of the games they were really good.
They were.
One of them, it didn't look like they left Denver.
One, probably the most important, was an absolute stinker. Ezra, your bold prediction was that Mikko Rantanen would lead the team in points. Did that happen?
No, I forgot about Nathan McKinnon when I said that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nathan McKinnon had a stupidly good week.
I was going to say, if Mikko scores a lot of points, usually that means Nate scores a lot of points. So it's kind of like,
every point that Mikko got, Nate also got a point on, and then Nate had points on.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And that's all right, though. That just means Nate Dogg is eaten. Jackie, your bold prediction was that Sam Alinsky will be sent back to the Eagles before Christmas. It's kind of a long-term one, but for now.
Yeah, for now. Sorry, Sam. You played well. You got your first goal.
Yeah.
Just please get a new number for Christmas.
Yes.
I can't look at that set. If you're going to be on this team the rest of the year, good for you. Please let them give you a better number than that.
Yeah.
What's your number rule? He has to be one of the single digits because he's a defenseman.
Oh no. I mean, if he chose that one, which I very, very, very highly doubt he did, then I'm cool with it. But 70 is it's a development camp number. Like it's not even an AHL number. It's like the development camp number. It's so bad. And for a defenseman, it's terrible. Like anything would have been better. I think in his history, he's been in the 20s, which I know is tough. A lot of those are taken. Mm-hmm. But you got to do better than that. Like the guy is past development camp level of play here. Just give him like a real person number. Like 70 is so bad. It is so bad.
I was going to say, thinking through the 20s, I think he only has two options. I think he has 20. No, not even 24. That's allowance. I think 26.
Yeah,
I mean, even that would be better. Like anything would be better.
I say he just throws everybody for a loop and goes with 9.
26. And I will.
Yeah,
I will
9 on a defenseman's weird, but I mean, hey, if he picks it, I'm fine with anything.
9. Adrian,
if somebody comes out,
nerve.
I mean, there's just no way he picks 70. There's no way.
Is the same true for Kivi Ranta, who was, I think he was 25 in Dallas and 14 at one point. Is 94 really the number you think he's settling on?
Yeah, like all the numbers in the 90s are chosen. Like nobody gets given a 90, so he must have picked it. Like even some of the 80s can be chosen a little bit, especially like 80. I know 87's taboo, but like 88 or 89, those are usually chosen. But it's like the 70s and maybe like the early 80s, like 81, nobody picks those. Those are development camp numbers.
There you go. Well, now I'm trying to figure out if mine was correct. I had that the Avalanche would have 4 power play goals between now and between then and now.
That did happen.
That did happen now. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, give me another.
It's like how many power play minutes do they need to get that? But
do I? I'm going to give myself 4 for the 4 goals, baby. Let's go.
All right. For none of us getting any.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's always nice when you forget that you're right. It's never nice to forget that you were wrong. So, Evan, let's do this bold hope / bold prediction thing. It's your turn. Let's hear it.
I've been trying to think of one. I focused so much on my breakaway topic that I did not put in too much thought into the bold prediction. So, like the best one that I can think of, at least at the moment, and you all are going to laugh at me when I say it, is since he's in tonight and who knows how long he'll be in for, Curtis McDermott is going to score a goal this week.
Yeah.
His cross his heart.
We might as well get credit for it. Why not? Somebody should.
Yeah. Hey, I do like Jackie's not recognition. Yeah, recognition that the Ottawa games are always wild. If he's in on Thursday, who knows?
Yeah. If you're on any of those apps, you should put some money on it then. Probably get a good return.
I'm gonna upload this one with a nice picture of Curtis McDermott because of the funny take right there. You know what though? You guys are totally right. This is that weird game. It's just sounds like McDermott's just gonna have the silkiest goal of all time, Gretzky-esque.
We kept a car overtime-esque from a couple years ago.
So we are off to a hot start with that one. Jackie, hit me with your bold prediction.
Okay, my first one's a joke that just Makar plays before Christmas. But no, I'm not gonna make that my official prediction. It just seems like a bold hope at this point.
Yep.
Okay,
welcome to the club.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the bold hopes. I want a hat trick. We haven't seen a hat trick yet, so I'm going to go with the hot hand. Okay. Nathan McKinnon, give me a hat trick for Christmas.
I like that one. I could totally see that happening tonight.
So that's my bold hope.
All right, I'm putting that in as Jackie's bold prediction / hope. Nathan McKinnon will give us a hat trick for
before
Christmas.
Yeah.
I love that. And it just seems weird that the Avalanche haven't had a hat trick, especially with the likes of McKinnon and Rantanen on the squad. So it's got to drop. The shoe's got to drop at some point. Ezra, we got McDermott on the board. We got McKinnon with a hat trick. What do you got for me?
There's two that I really want to do. I'm going to hold myself down to one. I'm going to say that Colorado doesn't lose again this year.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
love that
a spicy one.
So they go undefeated from
games.
now
That's
until
5 games. Oh, 6 games.
6 games, yeah.
One of them San Jose, so it doesn't count. Which probably they're going to lose that one.
Yeah, I was going to say. Well, you just did it.
And it's New Year's Eve too. So
the hard part of this is the 2 Arizona games. Beating Arizona twice is going to be rough, but I want to see it, and I'm boldly predicting it.
I love it. Bold prediction this week: the Avalanche will go undefeated for the rest of the calendar year. Yeah,
it's a good one.
I love it,
man. At least the other two of you were able to think through things. I was just like, oh, McDermott's going to score.
I mean, why not? And you could get it right.
If I get it right, oh boy, the entire neighborhood's going to know about it.
So I say you got to put a couple bucks on that.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. All right. So we got McDermott, hat trick from McKinnon, and we got the Avs going undefeated for the rest of the year. If all 3 of those things happen, it will be a Merry Christmas. But I will say my bold prediction.
Okay, I thought you were skipping yours. Go ahead.
No. I got to do it. If I got to go back to back. Come on now.
It's true.
All right. Let's see. I haven't really thought about it, but I'll do it. Let's say this. This week, the Avs will get more goals. Let's check that. Points from defensemen than forwards.
Okay.
Bold.
Very bold. That's a bold strategy.
I think it's possible.
Especially without Makar in the lineup.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I know, right? That's very bold without Makar in the lineup. But hey,
going the way he's going.
Yeah. But hey, I'm just thinking of it this way: like for every point McKinnon has, Malinsky should have one too, right? I'm just
thanks, Adrian. Thank you.
Well, I tell you what, though, if the Avalanche are able to beat the Blackhawks tonight, which they very much should, that means and the Avalanche will be well on their way to securing your bold hope / prediction, Ezra. So here's to hoping, everybody. And thank you for listening to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian. I've been here with Evan Lou, Jackie K, and Ezra Parter from the milehighhockey.com website. Please head over there if you need previews and recaps. We also have some opinion pieces. And also head on over to Puck Yeti. We have another site that we some of us here contribute to. You can check us out there as well. And always follow us on Twitter and share us on YouTube and all that jazz. We love you. Go Avalanche, and you folks have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for tuning into the Mile High Hockey Lab.